I want to turn to this idea of neighborliness. And you started to hint at this, that corporate chaplaincy is a way to act justly in the world. And the way I think you communicated this is that corporate chaplaincy often provides or fills in with services that might not be available to employees that have lower economic means. And it offers these things that might be, more readily available to those with more financial. As you've thought about this idea of neighborliness, particularly Jesus' command to love our neighbor, how does corporate chaplaincy achieve that end?
Oh, very good question, John. And we could spend a lot of time on this, but trying to narrow it down. So as we think about the story of the Good Samaritan in the Gospel of Luke, chapter 10, the idea of neighborliness, just as you set it up, I am reminded actually of a formative story. It's a very Good Samaritan-like story that helped launch the entire field of workplace chaplaincy. So let me just give you a thumbnail of it. And if listeners want to dig into it more, the word chaplain actually originated from a literal Good Samaritan story that occurred about 337 AD. A young man of about 20 years of age by the name of Martin of Tours, and who was a serious follower of Jesus, history tells us, he was forced to serve in the Roman army because his dad was also served in the army, and in that setup, sons automatically had to serve, So he wanted to go into sort of vocational ministry, church-based work, but he had to serve in the army. While in Amiens, France, Martin noticed, as this true story goes, a poor man at the city gate without much clothing to wear, and it was bitterly cold, just like what we're experiencing probably. So very cold. He was a beggar. He did not have warm clothes to wear. Martin drew his sword and cut his military cloak, the story goes, in half and gave half to the shivering beggar. This cut off part of Martin's cape became then a sacred church relic, and used in ceremonies. They used it when the Roman army went into battle. From this application of Martin's cape, we derived the word capella, or chapel, or chaplain. And so, I think about this literal, neighbor. What can we learn from this being a good neighbor story, this Good Samaritan story? Well, there's much more to the story, John. We can't take time now to go into it, but St. Martin of Tours, not a modern day good neighbor, but certainly somebody who is an example for us. So back to your question, John, about how chaplaincy relates to neighborliness. Just like St. Martin of Tours was a good Samaritan in the 4th century. So we as chaplains are called to model neighborliness to those with whom we come into contact. And I would add, I believe all followers of Jesus, not just professional chaplains, are called to the same kind of Good Samaritan type of action. I believe that the workplace is an ideal venue for us as modern Christ followers to be neighborly or to be Good Samaritans. I mean, think about it. Opportunities abound to provide help and hope to fellow employees. And John, as we track sort of the marketplace movement and what that means, we've come to understand, right, that the marketplace, the workplace, is where most people spend the majority of their time. It used to be perhaps neighborhoods or houses of faith or even families, not so much nowadays. It's the workplace. And so maybe it's in this sphere that we as modern followers of Jesus can be salt and light. So, John, I think you're really onto something to press into this idea of how can we be neighborly in the Good Samaritan understanding of that word. And again, it's not just for professional types. It's for all of us.